It's 50,000 years ago. The sun has just gone down. There's no Netflix, there's no thermostat, there's no group chat to ignore. For the first humans, night wasn't me time. Night was a 12-hour boss fight against the dark. And somehow they survived it well enough that you exist to watch this video at 2 in the morning instead of sleeping. So tonight, let's answer a question your ancestors would find deeply confusing. What did ancient humans actually do at night? Let's start with the original technology, fire. We tend to think of fire as a cooking tool or a way to not freeze to death, both excellent uses. But anthropologists who studied modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Jew Huansi people of the Kalahari, noticed something fascinating. During the day, conversation was about 90% boring logistics. Who's doing what? Where the food is? Whose turn it is to do the thing nobody wants to do? But at night around the fire, the topics changed completely. Most of the nighttime conversation was stories. The fire didn't just keep them warm, it extended the day. It bought them a few extra hours of being awake but not working, and they spent it doing the most human thing imaginable. Telling tales about people who weren't there, animals that probably didn't do that, and ancestors who were definitely cooler in the retelling. In other words, the campfire was the first television. And just like television, the best content came on after dark. The stories got wilder the later it got, and there was always one guy who would not stop talking. This, by the way, is probably where humans sharpen the skills that make us us. Imagination, empathy, remembering the rules, and the ability to sit through someone's extremely long story just to be polite. You're welcome, modern dinner parties. Now here's where it gets weird. You probably assume ancient humans, exhausted from a hard day of not having furniture, simply passed out for 8 glorious hours. They may not have slept the way you do at all. Historian Roger E. Kirch dug through hundreds of old diaries, court records, and letters, and found references to something called first sleep and second sleep. People would go to bed, sleep for a few hours, and then, completely normally, wake up in the middle of the night. And they didn't panic about it. They didn't lie there doing mental math about how tired they'd be tomorrow. They just had a little night shift. During this gap, people would do quiet things. Pray, tend the fire, talk to whoever was next to them. Then they'd drift back into second sleep until dawn. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m. convinced something is wrong with you, relax. You might just be running ancient firmware. Let's not romanticize this too much, though. Night was also the part of the day most likely to end your entire bloodline. Many of Earth's most efficient predators, big cats, hyenas, various things with too many teeth, do their best work after sundown. For most of human history, going outside at night had roughly the same risk profile as volunteering as a snack. So humans got clever. They slept in groups. They kept the fire burning, partly for warmth, but also because most predators have a very reasonable policy of not walking into a glowing circle of upright primates holding pointy sticks. And here's a detail I love. In a lot of groups, people naturally went to sleep and woke up at slightly different times. The older folks tended to wake earlier. The younger ones stayed up later. Researchers studying the Hadza people in Tanzania found that across a group, there was almost always someone awake. Over many nights of monitoring, the entire group was asleep at the same time for only a tiny sliver of the night. In other words, Grandpa waking up at 5 a.m. for no reason isn't a malfunction. It's a feature. He's on guard duty. He's been on guard duty for 200,000 years. Let him have his early coffee. But it wasn't all hiding and trembling. Sometimes night was when the actual fun happened. When the moon was full and bright, the rules changed. Suddenly you could see, and a bright night was an opportunity for traveling, for hunting certain animals, and, crucially, for partying. Many ancient and traditional cultures held ceremonies, dances, and rituals specifically at night. Firelight, rhythm, chanting, maybe a little something fermented if they'd figured that out yet. And humans figured that out suspiciously early. Dancing in firelight does something to the brain. It releases feel-good chemicals, it syncs a group together, it builds trust. So when our ancestors danced themselves into a sweaty, joyful blur under the stars, they weren't just having a good time. They were literally bonding the tribe into a unit that could survive. So yes, the club has, in fact, always existed. The dress code was just loincloth. The bouncer was a saber-toothed cat. And last call was sunrise. Some things never change. And finally, there's the thing we've almost completely lost. When ancient humans looked up, they didn't see the sad handful of stars you get from a city. They saw everything. A sky so packed with stars it looked like spilled sugar. The Milky Way wasn't a candy bar. It was a glowing river running straight over their heads every single night. And they used it. They tracked the seasons by the stars. They knew when to plant, when animals would move, when the rains were coming. They turned that chaos of light into calendars and stories and maps. Every culture on Earth looked up at the same sky and drew its own pictures into it. Hunters, bears, kings, gods, and at least one very confused-looking goat. For hundreds of thousands of years, the night sky was the single most spectacular thing any human ever saw. And now most of us have never really seen it at all, because we replaced it with streetlights and a screen 6 inches from our face. So what did ancient humans do at night? They told stories. They slept in 2 shifts. They guarded each other from the dark. They danced. They fell in love. And they stared up at a sky so beautiful it basically invented religion, science, and art on the spot. They didn't have much, but they had the fire, the people next to them, and the entire universe overhead. For free. Tonight, when you finally put the phone down, and you will eventually, maybe step outside for a second. Look up. It's the same sky they saw. It's been waiting for you the whole time. Now, if you made it this far, you've officially outstayed the campfire. Subscribe so the algorithm can keep you up even later. And I'll see you in the next one.